How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pate. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in 1 convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
Sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow that some people don't want a relationship with you. They may just want a relationship with what you can do for them. But there's a fix for that. Let's talk about it. Guys, welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all. Stay elevated, create that infinity, and up your you. It's been a while. It's the podcast birthday month. And shout out to everybody who has been showing up, showing support, leaving some love. My new listeners was giddy. How are you guys? How's the end of the year coming along for you? I can't believe we are where we are. And I'm still in disbelief in terms of how interesting life has been in the past few months. As always, I think, there are always mental notes that I'm taking about my experiences, my personal experiences, my, kind of observance of other people's experiences. But I think overall, there's more of a conversation happening around, self-worth in the healthiest way. I am a person, I'm a coach, I'm an advocate for mental and emotional health. I'm also a huge, huge advocate for taking care of your people, really loving on people well and treating them so damn good. Like for me, that there's no excuse. You show up for your people. And it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of times, there is this dialogue I hear out in the world where it's almost like people are trying to either persuade or force people or coerce people into one-sided relationships where there is a lot of spiritual bypassing. There is a lot of dismissiveness of how, hurtful people can be when they decide to not show up, or if they're just very self-centered and selfish. And there's no real dialogue around that. And putting responsibility on those people. It's always like, yeah, you should really appreciate those friends that show up no matter what. And I think we are starting to understand what that means, because there truly is a lack of appreciation for those kinds of people. And I will say, as I always do, sometimes it's important to understand how genuine and authentic of a person you're actually being, or are you doing so much to desire to be like. All right, there are a lot of variations of truth in this conversation about the relationships that we exist in. Okay. And I think one today is, the topic of why you may realize there are certain people that only call you when they're in a crisis, but otherwise you don't really hear from them. They don't have time for you in their schedule. You're like the last to know. They don't prioritize their relationship with you, but you notice is like they can be very present only when they're in pain, and a lot of times we make the mistake of being so grateful that someone sees our ability to show up for them. And we are blinded by the fact that if it wasn't for us being available to them having access to us, they wouldn't be present at all. And a lot of times we don't actually understand that right away. Sometimes it's very obvious. Like you can pick that person out like a sore thumb, where it's like, oh, this person's only using me, right? They're fair weather. It's a very transactional relationship. We're probably not even friends if we look up the definition of what that is. But if it wasn't for me doing this, if it wasn't for me making myself present, would they show up? Right? A lot of times, and what I've started to be better about just over the years is not taking compliments as currency. You know, I think professionally, but also personally, especially personally, is I don't take compliments as a form of currency. And the reason I say that is this, because sometimes if you accept breadcrumbs, that is all you will be fed. And if you believe that breadcrumbs is all you deserve, those are the relationships that you'll continue to cultivate. Now, when we talk about parasitic relationships, I talked about this on a previous episode, like a parasitic relationship where there's a host and there's a parasite. And, you know, one person feeds off the other. And we don't always understand that until there is a hiccup in the relationship, or there is actually a moment for intimacy, not sexual, but just, you know, connection or bid for connection. And you realize, oh man, this person doesn't really have my back like I thought, or we're probably not as close of friends as I thought, because now, you know, when there are other variables involved, maybe they now have things going on. They have different friends. They're now in a relationship, or they just don't have anything happening. I don't hear from them. Even the dynamic feels different. They're slow to respond. They're not as quick to message. So, oh, this was kind of fair weather. Okay. And there have been some people I've heard sometimes where it's like, oh yeah, you know, I like being the person that somebody can reach out to no matter what, whenever they need. It doesn't matter how much time passes. You know, they're still my friend. They always will be. And I say to each his own. You know, some people need to be needed more than they need to have healthy relationships. Okay. And I even said to my buddy, I posted a video a couple weeks ago. I said to my buddy, I was like, you know, if I didn't value my mental and emotional health, I'd have more relationships, right? I'd have much more people in my life, in constant access and constant flow. If I didn't value my mental and emotional health, I would have more relationships. And I think that is such an important thing to unpack and understand what I'm saying to you. You know, there's a difference between having people who genuinely are invested in their connection with you versus people who are only invested as long as the connection benefits them. Okay. Sometimes you will become the safe person to unload on, but not the person that they celebrate with. Okay. The difference between being needed and being valued. Right. And some people out there are like, yeah, you know, I have different friends for different things. I get it. You know, there are some friends you go party with. That one friend may be introverted and they're just not that, you know. However, that friend is somebody you still reach out to and you guys connect with, and you have your own celebrations. You have your own traditions that you build. It's not just, oh, well, I have a different friend for that. And for some reason, this person I never seem to reach out to. I never make effort for. That's where it becomes a little gray. And most people won't admit to that. But the truth of the matter is sometimes we call people friends just so we can have the access of one without the responsibility.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso Virtual Coffee Machines. Ready to enjoy the bold flavors of barista quality Nespresso iced coffee at home? Simply fill a glass with ice and press the brew button on your virtual pop machine to enjoy rich double espressos roasted to stand up even when chilled. Refreshingly bold iced coffee. Refreshingly easy to make at home. Visit Nespresso.com to shop now.
You're the owner of a small business, which means you could use another pair of hands, like the experts at Verizon Small Business Days, August 11th through 17th. Get a free tech check and special deals like a free 5G phone. You know you want one. Call 1-800-483-4428 or visit verizon.com/smallbusiness to book your appointment. Verizon Business. Available for select 5G phones. New line device payment agreement and select data plan required. Credit applied to account over agreement term up to 36 months. Terms apply. Offer ends 8/17/2025.
Okay. Being an emotional ATM, we think that we are in this space of just superiority, right? We're a significant person in this individual's life, but in reality, you start to realize, oh man, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not that significant, actually, right? When they don't need me, they don't feel the need to be in my life either, okay? And a lot of times this happens. This is where it becomes our responsibility. You've trained this person, intentionally or not, to expect free emotional labor, okay? You've trained them to expect free emotional labor from you, okay? You'll realize they'll be emotionally avoidant when things are going well for them. And the connection feels safer when there's a problem to solve, right? Whether you're solving their problem or there's just some kind of issue. Okay, some people see you unconsciously as a support role in their story, but not an equal. All right, you have a problem to fix. It's like, calling in the handyman. And a lot of times we think we are so close to a person because we're sharing so much emotional exchange. We are making sure we show up in such a way where this person knows, hey, I got you. You don't have to worry about anything. I'm going to take care of you, whatever you need. But then when it comes time for you, it's like they're nowhere around. And then that's when the resentment sets in. That's where the doubt sets in. Maybe I'm too much. Or, they got a busy life going on. Everybody's busy. We're all adults, etc. You're an adult too. However, you still found time to show up for this person. And when you're giving to these people, sometimes people give as a form of control, right? As long as I keep giving to you, I know you'll need me. Other people do it from a fear of, not being significant. As long as I keep showing up, I know I'm important. And it's super crucial for you to take a good look at why you were doing it and how your needs are going unmet because of it. Okay. A lot of times you realize you don't hear from this person for weeks or for months unless something is wrong. Okay, this is usually a sign that you're a crisis-only friendship. When time passes, and the only time you hear from them is when they're going through a rough patch. Okay, conversations are almost always about them, their needs and their stress. But they vanish or give minimal effort when you need support. That is usually a big indicator. And it's okay, I think, to keep a pattern. Once you start to feel it in your body, this is why they say the body keeps the score, right? A lot of times we try to play this thing of like paranoia, or you're just not giving grace, or you're not giving people the benefit of the doubt. Everybody goes through things at different times. That's understandable. And I'll use me as an example. There are certain friends that I don't hear from regularly. And then there are other friends that I do. For a long time, there were people that I heard from daily. And I realized, I was like, but there feels like a disconnect here. Yeah, we talk every day, but something feels off. And I realized that even when I may have reached out to them, they were too occupied. They couldn't be bothered. And this didn't just happen one time. It was always conveniently an issue. Okay. And then there are people I don't hear from as often, but I understand it's not just about their capacity. They have other things going on, but the difference between the two is the trust built and sustained. The one that I don't hear from that often, there's a certain level of trust and repair that goes into our relationship continually to keep that bond. Okay, so when we talk about, oh yeah, friends should be able to go an extended period of time without talking, only friends can do that. You're not somebody's friend just because you do that. But if a friend does it, there's usually a reason, but also they are looking to repair because they respect the relationship. There's sometimes we leave so much important context out and we allow it to streamline how friendships and relationships should look, which is why a lot of times we end up confused, right? Should I be patient? Am I, being too much? Am I demanding too much? That's not my partner, whatever the case may be. And then you exist in these one-sided connections because society says that you should be a good friend. And being a good friend means that you don't expect one in return. Okay? I want you to really start to understand, what is it that you desire from your connections? Do you desire to be needed? Okay? Or do you desire to have a healthy network of community, of support, of reciprocity, of mirrors, you being a healthy component of somebody's life and them also being one for you? All right. The reason why we stay in this role, again, is feeling important. And some people feel important when they're rescuing somebody. I know that if you're always in trouble and you always call me, we're always going to be friends. Sometimes you're confusing empathy with obligation. Maybe it's a people-pleasing thing. It's not even deep empathy. It's like, hey, I got to show up. Like, I got to do this. Or maybe childhood conditioning. You being the caretaker to feel loved. As long as I'm always doing something, people will always love me. There are ways out of this if you are willing to be uncomfortable. Okay? This is like coaching 101, honestly. Because the cycle needs to be broken, right? If you start to recognize a pattern, that means you have to change up. Okay? How do they show up for you when they don't need anything from you? One of my mom's favorite quotes is like, pay attention to how a person treats you when they think that you can't do anything for them. Okay. Stop over-explaining your boundaries. Instead, just model them. What is it that I need to do? We need to recognize the difference between matching energy versus matching effort. If you're not a transactional person, don't be one. But if you want to balance out a relationship, sometimes you need to speak up and match the effort of the person that's showing up or not. And when you do that, some people will disappear because the dynamic is unfamiliar to them now. Okay? Others may actually adjust and show up in healthier ways. But either way, you learn who values you versus who just values what you do for them. Sometimes we fail to realize that people love how you love them. They don't necessarily love the responsibility that comes with showing up for you. Okay? I really want you to think about this and take it into consideration, because sometimes the reason why you feel so empty, so lost, so confused is because you are standing still and you are allowing yourself to be treated like a hotel. And that's why you can't find home. Okay? As cheesy as that sounds, I really want you to think about that. How safe do you feel in your body as of late? And if you're unsure, take a look at your relationships. And think about the people who you are in communication with and connection with. When do they reach out? All right? This is an interesting one. And I think as we get older, especially, like, our relationships do start to become a little bit more important to evaluate and pay attention to. If you're willing to. My willingness to be in healthy spaces definitely outshines my resistance to being uncomfortable. Right? Again, if I didn't value my mental and emotional health, I'd have a lot more relationships. And I'm not looking for a lot more people. I'm looking for the right people. All right. Speaking of which, I have one more spot for coaching. And I'm looking for one person who is looking to change in a big way and just be committed to their growth. My clients, usually the big archetype that I look for is someone who is okay with being challenged, but somebody who is also respectful and committed and willing to show up. You know, in life, if you think that other people are supposed to fix your problems, then that's a big problem. But in life, if you believe that you want somebody to assist you and work as a team as you guys unravel what's going on, whole different ballgame. Okay. And the people I work with, they see results because, hey, we're a team. I got your back. You got mine, in the sense of you are willing to show up and do what's necessary. So yeah, I think I mentioned this a long time ago, and this is for the subscribers, because I want to improve the content for the subscribers, the people who support and show up. So if there's any topics that you'd want to have on the bonus content, within reason, shoot an email at thebirdbrainpodcast@gmail.com. Yeah, because I'd love to have, or even a Q&A. I'm down to do a Q&A once a month. I think that'd be dope. Send me your questions, and yeah, I'll unpack those suckers. But yeah, I wanna make this next year a pretty exciting one, and so far it's already starting out to be that way for the podcast. So yeah, if you like this podcast, going back to the basics, leave a comment, leave a review, Apple or Spotify. Let people know what you love. And for the people who've been sharing this with other people, I'm letting you know how much I appreciate that. Okay? Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Take flight.